Aloha, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the Moana Nui podcast. This is episode 44. Uh, if you were tuned in for our 7:30 panel, I know a lot of you are still amped up, energized from that amazing conversation. And I know a lot of you have messaged and reached out to us about continue the conversation. So we will be scheduling a part 2 with our panelists. So be on the lookout for that information. But before we get started with our special guest, I'd like to go ahead and do a couple announcements before our introductions. Our, first of all, because our backers definitely stepped up and we reached our next stretch goal, we have unlocked the so fresh, so clean, the juggernaut of the indie artist Marcus Williams, his commissions on our Kickstarter. And on top of that, it's only five commissions. And anyone who's familiar, it's very rare to get a commission because of his busy schedule. So we have five of them available on our Kickstarter, and all of our backers will receive also three additional new digital comics for being a backer of our Kickstarter. So if you're not a backer, definitely go to our website, www.moananuipodcast.com. It's right in the banner below. And also, as you know, we like to give incentives. So our next incentive is we're just $72 away from Mike Watson of Chat and Draw to do push-ups for us live for all of you to enjoy. And
Yes.
we also will bestow a very special video of him in a cheerleading outfit. You can't miss that. And also, once we hit that $72, we will be unlocking two additional new digital comic books that will be added into the package for our backers. So definitely, we're just $72 away. And last but not least, there's only 8 days left to back the Moana Nui podcast campaign. So help us hit our goal of 100 backers. We only have 23 more backers to hit 100 backers. So help us over the next 8 days to hit 100 backers. And now, before we get started, let us, for those that are new to the podcast, introduce ourselves. I am Dana. If you may or may not know me, I am a event cosplay and con staff photographer that a lot of you may have seen my photography with MomoCon, Anime Week in Atlanta, Dragon Con, and DC Comics, to name a few. But I'm also an event planner and a voice actor and so much more. And also, I got to introduce my lovely, lovely co-host, everybody, the lovely Moana.
Aloha, everyone. Moana here. I am the founder and host of the Moana Nui podcast. I am also a children's book writer for the Adventures of Nakoa and Nohea children's book series, editor for the Wild Card Chronicles comic book series, and publisher here at Burning Spear Comics. I started this wonderful podcast for this great community that we are a part of. And I really want you guys to get to know some of the amazing and talented people that we are living amongst every single day. And I hope you guys enjoy the show and enjoy the content that we're bringing to you, whether you're watching live or in our recording on our various platforms. So thank you guys all for tuning in, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Exactly. Now, let us get ready to introduce our guest for today's episode. Jarvis Sheffield has been involved in various forms of multimedia over 25 years. He has done graphic design, web design, video, and animation multimedia, and has written technical articles for various publications. Jarvis has taught seminars, workshops, and classes on STEM, technology, and education. In addition to his vast experience in multimedia and education arenas, Jarvis holds several leadership roles, including the director of diversity track at DragonCon, the largest multimedia popular culture convention focusing on science fiction and fantasy, gaming, comics, literature, art, music, and film in the United States. He's also a coordinator for the Tennessee State University Media Center at historic Tennessee State University. He's also a board member for the Urban Media Makers, a independent content, a consortium for independent content creators telling stories that feature people of color, and of course, last but not least, a marketing chair for 10 Share Consortium, an organization that helps Tennessee libraries deliver efficient, effective library services through group purchasing power and innovative resource
Yes.
sharing projects. Jarvis also is the recipient of the 2021 Kate Wilhelm Celeste Award from the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers of America, presented at the 56th annual SFWA Nebula Awards for distinguished contributions to the science fiction and fantasy community. You can follow the diversity track for Dragon Con at Facebook at Diversity in Speculative Fiction, Instagram for at Dragon Con Diversity, Twitter for Diversity in Spec SPEC, and on the website at www.diversityinspectativefiction.com. And now, let us introduce and bring him to the front, Jarvis Sheffield.
Hello.
Hello, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm sincerely excited and privileged to be a part of the show today.
Yes,
Well,
absolutely. I really love the part about your work with the libraries. As you can see, you have your own library behind you. And
Oh yeah, yeah, a
as
lot of
someone
reading.
who kind of grew up in a library, yes, I
Oh,
feel at home right now.
oh, fantastic, fantastic.
So let's start with your origin story. During our show, we like to start from the beginning. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up, and what was your childhood like?
Oh, I had a very interesting childhood. I'm originally from Chattanooga, Tennessee. I grew up um, part ways up Lookout Mountain. And so that's a little unique. I don't know if you ever ridden or heard about the incline in Chattanooga. It's this train that goes up the mountain, sort of like a gondola or something. So I actually worked
Oh,
there in the summers at the in the shops at the top. But growing up on the side of the mountain, me and my friends, we were well, everybody else was playing basketball and football. We were kind of hiking and caving. So very unique childhood. In the summers, I spent a lot of time in Nashville, Tennessee, where Tennessee State University is. My oldest sister went to TSU, and she was a senior when I was born. So I kind of grew up uh, around TSU. And in the summers, I would spend on the farm at my grandparents' house, which is a real farm with cows and pigs and all those great things, and riding horses and stuff. But growing up, I was always interested in sci-fi. My older brothers would I kind of had to watch what they want to watch, or I get punched in the chest. And so I ended up watching stuff like Lost in Space and Star Trek and things of that nature. I went to a technical high school in for high school where I did electronics for like 2 or 3 hours a day every day, and from there I went to Tennessee State University, where I learned a lot of stuff involving technology, and that's kind of where my basis is from. It's a base of sci-fi and technology. I think, rewinding a little bit, I was already kind of interested in science fiction and space and things. And when Star Wars came out, that kind of just blew my mind, right? And so that got me interested in computers even more and robots and things of that nature. So that kind of pointed me in a trajectory of where I am now.
mm. Very fascinating. And I thought it was pretty cool that you talked about your sister being 18 and then you were born. That sounds like me and my little brother. We got that same gap.
Uh-huh.
So I
Yeah.
definitely understand that part.
Oh yeah.
And speaking of family, are there any traditions that you have that's been passed down in your family, and can you tell us about them?
Traditions. Hmm. Kind of just the normal stuff, Halloween, Christmas, um, Thanksgiving. But in my family, we kind of added, Kwanzaa, of course, and which is kind of what I formed the basis of Black Science Fiction Society with is those principles of Kwanzaa. But I think just as traditional stuff, with the exception um, of that Kwanzaa.
Okay.
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't really discover Kwanzaa until like when I was an adult and learning
Yes.
about those concepts. So I absolutely love that you folks adopted it into your family. That's great.
Hmm.
Oh,
Umoja is my favorite.
that was thank you. That was TSU. I didn't know anything about Kwanzaa until I went to college, and
Hmm.
going to a HBCU such as Tennessee State, and there are about 100 others. I got a subtle education of myself. I tell people, I kind of joke, coming from the regular school system, we knew about Martin Luther King and slavery, and that was about
Hmm.
the extent of it. We would see um, Minister Farrakhan every now and then on TV. I'm not sure, they're kind of like, that's not like the standard fare for TV. So that would be the one out of pocket thing that we would see. But once I went to Tennessee State, it was just a plethora of history and
Hmm.
culture. It was thoroughly immersed. It's a joke that we say. It talks about 1 year at a HBCU will undo 12 years of miseducation.
Oh
Mm.
yes. Yeah, we had CC the Geek come on to talk about the HBCUs. So
Yes.
yeah, it's such a rich culture, and man, talk about eye opening. Like
Yes.
I mean, I'm definitely a lifelong learner, so I'm still learning. I'm not going to claim to know everything, but
Yes.
yeah, whenever it's one of the things I love about this podcast, it just opens my mind to so many different things, and I
Hmm.
think it's really cool that um, the pride that resonates out of HBCUs and the graduates from them. Absolutely.
Oh
Hmm.
yeah, HBCUs I think put out the majority of Black people with degrees.
Yeah.
Down the street from TSU, well, actually, Nashville has four HBCUs. We have Tennessee State, we have Fisk down the street, you have, walking distance. You have Meharry directly across the street from Fisk, which
Wow.
most of the Black PhDs, doctors from in the United States come from Meharry. And then there's also American Baptist College across town.
Wow.
That's so interesting. So much Black excellence. It makes me
Hmm.
want to think about like what caused the HBCUs to focus like within those areas. How did those come up out of that particular place? Project for later.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay, well, bring me back on that panel.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, we have an HBCU focus panel.
Yes. Yes.
All right.
So, speaking about all of the different professionals that come out of HBCUs, tell us a little bit about what you do and how you found yourself in your particular field. And also, how do you balance your time across so many passions that you have?
Hmm.
Oh, my day job is at Tennessee State University. I'm the coordinator of both media centers. We have two campuses. We have a main campus, and then we have another campus downtown, which is the Avon Williams campus. Which makes Tennessee State unique because I think in the early '70s, um, UT Nashville was built downtown, and that was actually illegal. You're not supposed to have two state schools in one city. And so TSU sued and became the first and probably the only Black college to take over a white college.
Wow.
And so very unique among HBCUs. But what I do at the Media Center, we handle all of the online videos, sort of like the Netflix of educational videos, the actual physical media, DVDs and old tapes and CDs, things of that nature that may need to be reformatted or presented in classrooms for classroom settings. And we also check out equipment to different departments around campus that have an events or they need classroom lectures recorded and edited and things of that nature, or promo videos. And more recently, over the last 3 years, been really blessed and privileged to facilitate the Imagineering Lab Makerspace. We started with one 3D printer, and we have almost a dozen printers. No, I think we have 8 printers now. We have 3D scanners as well. We're doing laser etching. And then this year, we're, in addition to that, we're adding game development, 2D animation, and 3D animation. And so we really are pushing the students to explore, different options. You have different majors, engineering and computer science and things of that nature, but a lot of times students don't get to utilize that until get really deep into it until their junior or senior years. And so those first 2 years, they sometimes lose interest and change the majors and, do other things. And so the makerspace is a way to keep them engaged, keep them doing things hands-on, and it's open to all majors, so that if there are students that are interested in those areas, they can kind of get their hands wet in it. Because I think there's a study, it was like 70% of freshmen change their major within the first 2 years. So that's kind of what I do during the daytime. And that's a mouthful. And in terms of like balancing all the different stuff, I'm just kind of wired. I've been really blessed to be able to do the stuff that I do. And so I just probably get about 5 hours of sleep, but that's what I'm accustomed to. I've always, since high school, I've always been I've always multitasked. I'll give you an example. In high school, it's I think that's where it started.
Mm-hmm.
I went to school. We played basketball. I was on student council. I was on the wrestling team.
Yeah.
I was on VICA, and and had a job at Pizza Hut. So
Yep.
I've always been a multitasker.
Same here. We're amongst family, I think.
Yes. I think the people who tend to have multiple hats, it started at a young age.
Absolutely.
I joke with people. I tell them I think it's my undiagnosed ADHD. I just kind of spin around and do different stuff.
Yeah.
Multi-passionate is what I called it.
Exactly. Okay. Multi-passionate.
I'm gonna have to borrow that one.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Now, of course, we mentioned it in the bio as one of your many hats that you're on the board of the Urban Media Makers. Can you tell us a little bit about a bit more about the organization and what your role is?
What that organization does, they really put forth Black films. There's like a Urban Media Makers Film Festival that happens virtually every year. They promote different events and workshops along those lines of media. And that's primarily, I'm on the board. I guess being on the board, you kind of give your input on different things and share resources and things of that nature. But definitely check that out. It's in the Atlanta area primarily. And it didn't happen last year, but there's a physical event surrounding the website.
Okay. Very cool.
Cool. Mm-hmm.
So is that for like like the makeup of the organization in terms of the contributors? Are those kind of like is there a tie into the universities and things like that, or is this more for I guess independent creators or people seeking
It's
those
a
types of careers?
it's a it's a little both because it's been hosted on the campus of Georgia State for a
Okay.
number of years, probably about 20 years now.
Oh,
But it's
wow.
open, it incorporates the students, but it's also open to the public.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha. That sounds like a really good resource for Black filmmakers. We might have to connect
Definitely.
into their Dana.
Yes, exactly.
I see
And,
some. Maybe we can highlight some creators that are a
oh
part of
yeah,
that, or
and and
partner on
definitely
promoting.
and definitely check out the Facebook um, Urban Media Makers group. That way
Hmm.
you can see when and where everything is, and there's
Okay.
also a new online streaming service attached to that.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, we
Nice. That
definitely have to check
sounds
that out.
for
Mhm.
sure.
See how we
Absolutely.
can partner.
All right.
Yes. So, we talked a little bit about in-person versus virtual event. With a pandemic, so many conventions have had to learn how to shift, from this paradigm and doing things in a new way, in order to engage with, people who would typically be attending those conventions. Now, with your position as the director of the diversity track at DragonCon, um, how did you have to provide content and visibility to congoers to still get them to be engaged, last year, when we couldn't?
I think DragonCon is such an immense thing. Period. There's going to always be a big buzz. The previous year there were up to I think 85,000 people at DragonCon, so it's a humongous thing, and we were able to pull off 27 uh, different events around the track last year. I think 24 were panels. Then you had some exhibitions. You had some workshops on animation. You had like basically a digital a digital cosplay where we all came in the room and just had a party, and everyone had their avatars on. And so that was definitely different and fun. And in terms of keeping the buzz, I think there's always a buzz about what's going on with DragonCon, when it's going to happen, what's going on. And so just dropping information in the groups and on Facebook and just kind of tweeting that out on social media, that kept uh, the excitement around DragonCon going. And you still see that today. Everybody's like, okay, what's going to happen? Are we going to be in person? Are we going to be digital? Is it going to be hybrid? Who's going to be there? Who's doing what? But it's a great event, and I'm very, very excited to be part of DragonCon and be able to facilitate bringing as many people as possible under the umbrella to be heard.
Mhm. Now, of course, we work with a lot of creators, and for those that are interested in either being a guest with DragonCon on the diversity track or even having a panel on the track this year, how can
Mhm.
people in the audience express their interest, and how do the track itself show the indie community um, support that has grown so strong within the con world?
You can a to participate. There's a form that you fill out on the DragonCon site. That's the official route to take, and I would direct everyone there first, and then likewise email us at our email address, and feel free to hit us up on our social media. Just inboxes like, hey, I'm interested in being part of this, and we'll see what we can do in terms of getting you seen
Mhm.
by hook or crook. But DragonCon, it has a specific way of doing things, but they've been very, very lenient in terms of letting me have, a longer leash on getting people to be a part of the track. And so I'm really appreciative of that. It kind of let me do, within reason, kind of let me do what I
Right.
want to do.
Right.
Yeah.
But I always want to make sure that I find the best people.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't micromanage. I find the best people and I put them together and let them do what they do. And that has worked. I don't have like predefined questions or none of that stuff. It's like, okay, this person, you do what? Okay, I know you from this. Oh, you did what? Show me your stuff. And then like we'll see what we can do in terms of getting you on.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's really cool. In terms of like finding the best people, like, are there specific, I guess, skill sets or types of things that you're looking for on the track?
Well, the biggest thing is you having a proven track record of, you
Mm,
know, of work. You know, there's a lot of people that have talent and you can draw or you can do this stuff, but you kind of shy and haven't put yourself out there.
Got
But
it.
I've been really privileged to have gone to a lot of cons. I generally go to between 10 and 12 cons a year. And so I run across all types of super talented people. And so I think I'm kind of spoiled in that regard. And then also with Black Science Fiction Society, it has 5,000 registered members. And on Facebook, we have like 11,000. And we also run Afrofuturism Central, which has 10,000, 9,000. Black Comic Creators, which has 14,000. So I can kind of see a body of work that people have done and we move forward from there. And then also we want to make sure that you have a best fit with the group because you have sometimes people may be super talented, but they're hard to work with. And so,
Mm.
yeah,
and so that weighs in as well. And so we want everyone to have a good experience. So we look for talent and how well you gel together with others.
Yes.
gotcha. Yeah, Dana's talked about that on previous shows before, like finding the right energies,
Uh-huh.
because there's a lot of talent to choose from, but you still have to,
Mhm.
create a good event and give
Yes.
the attendees a great experience. So you want to have
Oh
those team
Hmm.
players. I mean, and the same thing applies for, when you're recruiting even for careers, right? It's the same
Yes.
thing.
yeah,
Proven
exactly.
track record.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, but this is
Yes, JD,
very
we're
black.
talking about Dragon Con right now. Yes. Jarvis is the director of the diversity track. So he does great work for the con. I mean,
Thank
I'm sure he has contributed so many things to the success of the show. So,
thank you, thank you.
um, yeah, and having those high standards, I mean, you have to, right? Because you're trying to elevate the event, elevate the game, all that fun stuff.
Yes.
So you mentioned a little bit about the Black Science Fiction Society, and the voices of POC and Black diasporan peoples are not often heard as much in mainstream science fiction. How has the Black Science Fiction Society given voices to Black science fiction writers and exposing more people to their work?
Okay. I think this year it makes 13 years of Black Science Fiction Society. We started this with about 20 people. And I tell people I think what made me actually jump out there and do it was, me and my son were watching something and he was like, why are all the bad guys black people?
Mm.
And so that opened up a can of worms that I wasn't intending on discussing that early at 7. And so that and also President Obama he wasn't president at the time, but he was campaigning and with this yes we can thing. And I'm like, okay, it was like be the change. I'm like, okay, what can I do? Between him and my son, I was like, oh well, I can't make movies, I can't do this, I don't know how to do that. But what I can do is create a website that puts all the comics and positive images that I know of in one place and make it easy to find. Because the people had a buzz in Chicago or in Memphis or Chattanooga or New York, and a lot of people just kind of had a buzz, and people only knew them in their immediate area. So what I did was pull all of those different elements together under one place. All the comics I could find, independent comics, all the videos, the animations, the posters, artwork, all that together in one place. And so we started with about 20 people, and that just kind of grew from there. And in addition to just having the network where we could talk and share information, I think that was the most beneficial thing because I didn't know how to do a podcast, I didn't know how to do a magazine, I didn't know how to do a lot of things, animate anything, and we just share information with each other and be like, well, how do you do this? And somebody on there is gonna answer and help you along with the process. So with all of that talent, we decided to, because we felt like there are not enough Black books, and so we came out with the anthology. We picked 2 dozen short stories where Black people had the superpowers and the spaceships and were winning and all of these things. So we started that, and that was a success. And we just reinvest everything back into uh, Black Science Fiction Society to keep it going. Then we had an idea like, oh, well, we're not getting any play in the magazine, so we created Genesis Magazine, and it's an exhibition of Black talent in the realm of science fiction and fantasy. And then likewise, we did our own podcast show for almost 6 years. We taking a little break, but did that for 6 years straight. And we have coloring books. We have um, a couple of toys. We're actually in the process of making a 3D film as we speak. And so we're really trying to take the independent to the next level in terms of, you know, sharing information, um, promoting each other's work, and buying each other's stuff and sharing those resources.
Exactly. I mean, that's the best way we can all support each other and continue to allow our voices to be heard.
Mhm.
But another way of definitely being recognized for helping to get those voices to be heard, I mentioned earlier when I was introducing you in your bio that you was awarded the 2021 Kate Wilhelms Celeste Award from the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers of America uh, for your contribution to the science fiction and fantasy community. What was that experience like, and how long have you been working in the science fiction and fantasy community?
Oh my God. When I found out a couple of months ago, I thought someone was pulling my leg, really. Because that's when I heard about it and it was explained to me that I won it. It was amazing to me that that's the same award that my idol in Black science fiction, Octavia Butler, that's the award she won.
Mm,
And Carl Sagan, which is kind of like the predecessor of Neil deGrasse Tyson, for that show Cosmos years ago,
mhm.
um, being mentioned in the same sentence with them is just has me giddy. And so I'm completely overjoyed and ecstatic about that completely. And like I said, it wasn't something I campaigned for, and it wasn't something that I actually was like shooting to get or anything. And so that just coming out the blue it took me completely by surprise. And it kind of gave you a little extra, give me a little extra oomph, a little more enthusiasm to continue doing what I'm doing. Um,
Mhm.
and like I said, with the Black Science Fiction Society, this year makes 13 years of being in the science fiction community and actually active, because since I was a little kid, I've watched science fiction and things of that nature. Then when we were in college in the early 90s, me and my friends, I think we spent all of our little work study money on comic books. Yeah, the Black comic books from like Milestone. And then people don't really remember it, but it was a force as well at the time around the early 90s. It was a company called Ania, where it was a collaboration of different artists doing independent comics. So I've been doing it, involved in it most of my life, a little more active in terms of physically buying stuff in the early 90s and collecting and things of that nature. But Black Science Fiction Society was the next phase was it 2008? But it's been 13 years of doing this stuff day in day out, and a lot of times it's the first thing I do in the morning, the last thing I do at night. is this science fiction stuff. But I love doing it, and I tell people I didn't get into this to do to make $1 million. I didn't do it for any of those. I did it because I felt like it needed to be done. There was a void in representation, and I take one of my son's films. I think it's called Robots. It has this thing that says, "I see a need, feel a need," and so I'm trying to fill that need. And I have to share in all of these accomplishments with the people that have been a part of Black Science Fiction Society. It's not me. It's not just me. It's all the members that have contributed. It's all the members that help do the different facets of the site to keep it going. And so I definitely have to give props to everyone that has supported us over the years, and kind of bought into the vision of independent creators having their own space as a springboard.
Yes, definitely. It takes a village to do anything, especially as an independent, when you don't have all the resources, right? Like the true resources really are within the people that you surround yourself with, and their dedication to whatever the specific mission is. So yeah, we can certainly relate. Dana and I are trying to build and grow this thing, and we're just like really appreciative of our guests who are coming on and really just sharing your story and helping people to kind of relate a little bit more and hear from people, so that maybe you get encouraged and inspired that, like, oh, maybe I can do that too, right? Like that there are people out here doing it, and you can be successful too.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, I was having a discussion with one of my friends. I believe that every person is blessed with some form of talent or something to contribute to the world. Just finding what that is and exposing your kids and your friends to different things so that they can have an opportunity to explore that stuff. Because if you don't get a chance to explore it, or you don't do it on your own, as no one introduces you to it, you don't know what you don't know.
Right. Yeah, it kind of makes me think of I don't know the exact quote, but essentially it's like the graveyard is filled of with so many untapped potential, like people who have passed on without really exploring and tapping into their talents. And
that's Les Brown.
Yes, I was like, what? I don't know it. My memory's failing.
That was Les.
Yes, it's one of my favorite things. I try to think of it from time to time, like whenever I feel that imposter syndrome coming in. It's like, nope, this is what you do. This is what you're good at. Just do it. This is your contribution.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. I cheat. I kind of brainwash myself. Look, with the imposter syndrome, I still have that to this day.
Oh, absolutely.
But because you have so many negative images that you're bombarded with, and sometimes you're watching films, you almost have to turn your mind off to enjoy it. But if it's something I have to turn my mind off to enjoy it, I just don't watch it anymore. I'll pick up one of these millions of books that tell the story the way I want it told, and watch that in my mind. Definitely interesting stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. The books in the mind. You just kind of spoke to my little girl. That's why I said I grew up in the library. Like, it was just my favorite place to be. I pick up a book and I go into another world. It's really cool.
So now you're making me have flashbacks. I was very sheltered as a child. And the library was the only place my parents would let me go unsupervised. And I had to beg to do that. That was the first place to get out of the house. Okay, I catch the bus to downtown, and don't you go anywhere past the library. You're gonna get fired up. I'm like, okay. But I wasn't planning on going anywhere because little nerd Jay was reading all the books on how to make robots.
Absolutely. Man. For me, it was the Boxcar Children, like growing up in the wilderness. It was one of my favorites
right there. Yes.
That one and the Babysitter's Club.
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh, yes.
All right. That's some of my niece's stuff. I'm a I'm a little older than that one. I think that one's a
Yeah. Yeah, I probably got some of my girl power vibes from those books. Uh,
was good.
yeah. So we talked a little bit about, the importance of keeping the right people around you. And I know you partner with a bunch of different creatives and planners, just like Dana, to help build the content for Dragon Con every year. How can people support the track and the creatives that are part of the panels?
Oh, that's a great one. Just join. The biggest thing is really quickly. If you get an opportunity to join the Facebook group, that way you can see what's going on and actually meet other people that are involved in it or potentially involved with the track. Um, Definitely, if you see some of these creators in the group, buy their stuff. That's the
Yes.
when I say support, uh, a pat on the back is great, but when someone buys something, that's
Mhm.
a real investment and it really it's really where the rubber hits the road in terms of making sure that the person continues to do what they do. Because I've seen over these 13 years, people put their last dollar into creating these comics and
Yes.
books and things that people say that they want to see,
Mhm.
but they don't support in terms of purchasing so that that person
Yeah.
can continue. And some of them get
Yes.
discouraged and stop. And I hate to see that. That's why I encourage people. If you want to really show your support, buy what they're doing. You may not even like what they're doing, but support them. You might know somebody that does. You might not like
Right.
this comic book, but buy it and give it to a friend of yours that may like that, or a niece or a nephew or
Mhm.
someone like that. I do that all the time.
Yes.
My
Yes.
nieces and nephews is they're just so spoiled because they're always getting they're starting to, and now my friends are like getting stuff and they're starting to expect like, what do you got for us? What
Yeah.
did you get? What did you get at the con?
Yeah. Exactly.
But to see the interest that I'm more than happy to do it, especially when you're sharing this artwork and these comics and stuff with young people to pique their interest because you're just basically seeding the next generation
Right.
when you're doing this stuff. So
Yes.
if you want to support the creators, buy their stuff. Otherwise,
Yes.
you're just blowing smoke.
Mhm.
It's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
Yes.
kind of wanted to pull on the string that you mentioned about like um purchasing something from them is an investment, and some people put like every single dollar into doing their comic. That made me think about one of our guests, LaShawn. I mean, she went without heat for 3
Yes.
years, y'all. Like she was
I've
going to
heard that.
put her book out. Like it was not a
Yeah,
game.
look,
Yes.
she went above and beyond, but guess what? She's reaping the benefits now with
Yes.
Mhm.
her shop,
Yes.
with her products, and sometimes that's what it takes. A lot of people,
Mhm.
sometimes people give up um, too soon,
Yes.
or
Mhm.
they don't make the necessary sacrifices to go to the next level. And one of the worst things that you can do is shortchange yourself in terms
Mhm.
of your talent or whatever endeavor you're doing. I tell people with Black Science Fiction Society and the things that are related to these are my kids. These are my other kids. And when you have kids, you're gonna feed them, you're gonna nurture them, you're gonna spend the time that it takes so that that kid is successful. And when that kid's trying to walk, yeah, okay, that kid may fall 20 times, and you don't just say, okay, he fell 20 times, so I'm gonna stop. No, you
Mhm.
keep on till that kid walks. And that's
Yes.
how I look at your creative endeavors or your business. You keep at it until it walks.
Yes. And, one of the biggest things we always tell people too, and like you mentioned, even with the track, is even if you may not have the money at the time to support them, follow their social media, share it with other people because that's another way you can show support to them is sharing their information, sharing about the diversity tracks so people that may have an interest will know about it, start following it, knowing all the stuff, and then of course, anyone who's not familiar with Dragon Con, luckily with it being virtual last year, if you follow the group, the diversity and speculative fiction, you can see some of the videos of our panels and everything that was on the track last year, so you can get
Oh
a
yeah.
taste of what the diversity track offers. And that's how you can also support is sharing some of that stuff with others. So money and your time of sharing and spreading the word means a lot to these creatives and people behind like Jarvis that put a lot of work into these fan-based cons to bring this content to you.
Definitely.
Well, thank you, thank you.
Now, of
All right.
course, one of the big things is you mentioned your nieces and nephews and your friends, families and stuff. For the future generations of your family and your loved ones listening to this episode, what wisdom would you pass on to them and what would you want them to know?
Um, I would say, hmm, some wisdom. I don't know how wise I am, but I would encourage them to support their children in their endeavors. Something that my parents did with me and something I did with my son. I didn't try to make my son a carbon copy of myself. I
Mhm.
exposed him to a lot of different things, and what he showed interest in, I got behind. And I think when I saw some friends of mine growing up, uh, particularly at college, their parents were trying to make clones of themselves through their kids, and they wasted a lot of money and time. One of my friends was he was intensely interested in video and photography, but his dad wanted him to be a, a doctor like him, and he was
Yeah.
doing the pre med thing until I mean up to like the junior year, but it just didn't work, and he reset, went to another school, and got the degree that he wanted to get in television and video production, and is thriving in it.
Mhm.
Likewise, another young lady, her parents sent her to school and spent a lot of money trying to get her to go this way. When she graduated, I think she was in the industry maybe 6 months. And she went back to hair school and was doing hair, which is what she had a passion for. Now she owns this nice ritzy spot in a swanky area of town, uh, thriving. And so
Yes.
I would say support your children in their endeavors, expose them to a lot of different things, and get behind them. Then also in
Yes.
terms of with the sci-fi thing, uh, I think sci-fi is very important in it because Isaac Asimov said, "Today's science fiction is tomorrow's science fact,"
Mhm.
and that's been so true. You can look at Star Trek, and Jim Kirk had his communicator, which is now
Yes.
a cell phone, which by
Mhm.
by chance, a graduate of Tennessee State University, Jesse Russell pioneered the technology for that. An
Mhm.
engineering student from Tennessee State.
Yes.
Um, the flat screen TVs, the tablet, even the 3D printers. The first 3D printer that I was able to buy for the library through the library for the makerspace is called a MakerBot replicator, and a
Mm.
replicator is what makes the food and different tools and stuff on Star Trek. So all of these things that were ideas in science fiction became physical entities that we all use today. And so I
Yes.
was at a conference and somebody was like, "Well, what are you selling?" I was like, "We got sci-fi," and this is like, "Well, I don't like sci-fi." I was like, "Yes, you do. You just don't know it yet."
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
explained to him about this science fiction becoming science fact, and I was like, "We need our kids to get involved in this stuff so they can benefit from it, as opposed to just being consumers."
Exactly.
And so those are two things: that making sure your kids get involved in science fiction, and get behind them, and even your friends too when they're doing something different or odd or weird. You never know where it's going to take
Exactly. Like one of our listeners is saying Dick Tracy had the first Apple Watch.
them. Yes, it did. I think
Yes,
yeah, that was before Star Trek.
exactly. And like you said with Star Trek, from the virtual screens, like we have that now, and all that stuff, and you find out from a lot of developers, they got inspired from seeing that on screen. And
Exactly.
I know something from growing up is the biggest thing is definitely discouraging young girls as far as being into comics and science fiction, saying
Mhm.
that's for boys. You
Oh
can't
no.
be into
Oh.
that and stuff. And we have to break that 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 biasness that we have that was set up a as construction as a separation of, well, girls have to do all this girly stuff and boys that's for boys. And we like you said, we end up losing a lot of great talent, or someone end up
Mhm.
going the wrong path because they told me I can't play with robots because that's for boys and things like that. And luckily, with so many STEM programs, we're making that change, but it's not changing fast enough that we're still having girls being told that's not for
Oh
you,
no.
that's or especially as they get older, oh, those cartoons and stuff you watch, that's for kids. You're too old for that. You need to focus over here. So it's a
Mm.
lot of those preconceived notions we have to break within the community to allow
Oh
these
yeah.
our future generations to thrive.
Oh yeah. And you hit the nail on the head in terms of representation. And that's one of the privileges I get to do with Dragon Con, is making sure that everyone, women, alternative lifestyle, age, ability, everybody gets
Hmm.
to have a platform.
Yes.
And then also it's a great um, we have great conversations, and when we sit down and conversate, I know people don't hate that word, I love it, but we sit down and conversate, we get a better understanding of people, where
Yes,
you have all these
yes.
preconceived notions and you sit down that you hear over here, whatever. When you sit down and talk to
Mhm.
people, you
Yes.
actually get a better understanding, so that everybody gets along better, and everybody
Yes,
has their representation, and get
exactly.
and get to show their talent
Yes, yes.
and contribution. Mhm. But
Yep.
yeah, I have a little niece. She's 6. She is my little. That's my project. That's
Yes.
TSU. That's my TSU graduate in about 12 years. She she gets science kits and
Mhm.
comics and coloring books and
Yes.
things of that nature. She just my sister just sent me a video of one of her science kits that they did last week, so I'm just excited about that. But yes, most definitely. Um, and then we talk the stuff, but you really have to live it. You
Mhm.
know
Mhm.
what I'm saying? And that's something that you all are doing with this show, and it is wonderful. Just the fact that you are doing what you're doing, you're influencing other. You really have no idea who you're influencing with this show,
Yes.
but you are not just the people that you're familiar with, people that you might never hear from, but they may
Right.
have saw something on here or heard something that you said on here that resonated with them to help them along in their journey.
Yes.
Yep,
Yes.
and that's really at the heart of what we're trying to do. Is to your point. Getting to know people and reducing those preconceived notions and
Yes.
initial judgments and biases, all those things that society tends to brainwash us with,
Yes.
right? So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
like,
Yes.
I just love sitting down with people and getting to know them and learning about
Mhm.
their journey and trying to see how I can apply some of their wisdom, whether they know it or
Yes.
not, right? Self-proclaimed or not.
Mm-hmm.
Learning from the stories of others and finding my own encouragement in it too.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
definitely. Yes,
Yeah.
like I say, and Moana knows, we're the people to make that change for our next generation. Like literally,
Mm-hmm.
my sisters and my friends tease me that I started a generation of little nerds and geeks because all my nieces and nephews and godchildren are like, "Ooh, Auntie Dana, what's some anime can you recommend? Ooh, I was reading this I give them comics and everything else. Is like, ooh, you know, about this con. I'm trying to get mom and dad to let me go to a con. I asked them just let me go to the land and let me see you, and we'll go to con. And it's like, yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
And then
Yeah.
their parents are like, talk to your auntie. I can't help you and none of the stuff you're asking me about.
Awesome. And with how immense and how immense Dragon Con is, just going to one Dragon Con, you're gonna be hooked for the rest of your
Yes.
Yes, I need to. That's definitely on my bucket list of cons. I have not made it down to Georgia yet, and
life.
I'm hoping to fix that soon.
Yes,
All right,
exactly.
all right, all
Exactly.
right.
And it's
Yes.
it's a typical thing. I tell people when they go to cons, it's like if you go to the right one, it's like a Lay's potato chip. You just can't have one. You're going to be going to, you know, Dragon Con, you're going to BlurCon, you're going to Anime Week in Atlanta, then all of a sudden you're MomoCon, and then next thing you know, you're going to like Jarvis, 10 to 14 cons in a year.
Oh yeah, and that last year was a different. It was a culture shock for me because
Yeah.
for 13 years, I started off just going to like one or two cons, and then I was like, oh wow, um this is very cool. But oh, before I forget, I tell people they're like, well, we need distribution. We don't have distribution. About we do have distribution. You just have to work for it. These
Hmm.
conventions, these urban conventions, are distribution nodes because much like the African Street Festival here in Tennessee, in Nashville, it started off as it was, I think it was the Monroe Street Festival at first, just like a little, it was maybe 20 people with little tables on Monroe Street, and it has grown to be the second biggest event for Black people in Nashville. You have TSU's homecoming, which is immense. It shuts the city down. Outside of that, the African Street Festival is the next biggest event, and that started off with 20 people. And what happens, you have with the African Street Festival, it becomes a tradition. So, I had to bring that back. When we said a tradition, that's a tradition. The African Street Festival. You save your money. You go to the African Street Festival and like, okay, I'm gonna get me some Black stuff. I'm gonna get me some African stuff, because you know what you're gonna get when you get there. It's a targeted audience. And likewise, the conventions are the same thing. You have stuff like the Motor City Black Age of Comics. You have Onyx Con. You have Blurred Con. You have
Mhm.
the East Coast Black Age of Comics. The ATL Sci-Fi and Fantasy Expo. You have all of these different events, and there are more, but those are the ones that are on the tip of my tongue right now. And people have money in hand, looking for a specific product, and that's where they get it. They want comics, they want artwork, they want, sometimes they have jewelry, sometimes they have food, sometimes they have clothes, but it's a targeted audience. So that's something that I want to encourage when things open back up, to go to the Black cons, to the urban cons, the different cons, because you're gonna have a great time. You're gonna get some
Yes.
cool stuff,
Yeah,
and even the
absolutely.
virtual cons. Mhm.
Yes.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes, that's great advice. So as we're coming to a close, let me ask you just one more question. You've done
Oh,
so many things in your life. What
Yes.
is like the one thing that you're most proud of?
oh my God, I'm not sure. I wish I could do more, but I think being able to facilitate Black Science Fiction Society, which a lot of the people that you had on the show, a lot of people that you see doing great things, they started out with Black Science Fiction Society. They were members here, and hopefully I had an opportunity. The site had an opportunity to influence them in some way. But being able to create that that space
Mm,
for us when there was none, I think that's one of my greatest, something I feel really proud about.
Yes.
yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I feel like for me that's like the goal is how many people can I help to launch and help them level up and become better at their craft or even start it, right? Like if they're kind of teetering on the fence.
Oh yeah, a friend of mine, I ran into him at a con, and he came to the table, and we got to talking, and he brought his sketchbook, and I was like, man, this is off the chain. This was like Robotech, and it's a black dude drawing stuff like Robotech. I only know one other dude that does this, and your stuff is tight too. And so we were talking and stuff, and now he has a dozen comic books. Oh, when we talked, he was like, I appreciate you encouraging me. If it wasn't for you, I was about to quit. And we talked about that the other day. I was like, man, thank you for coming over, because you didn't have to come over to the table. It was all in you. And so he has 12 comic books. He have over 100 characters. I mean, they're dropping like one character a day, and everybody's going crazy about it. And so I have a model of one of the spaceships, and probably about a dozen of his posters. It's awesome stuff. And if I can continue, and the site can continue to influence people like that, that makes my day. I'm good. I'm done.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for being, that beacon of light for a lot of the creators that we're able to enjoy now. I mean, you never, like you said earlier, right? You never know who's gonna just speak into your life and say something that you needed to push you forward. So thank you for being that person.
Thank you, because I'm just trying to play it back. There's been so many people that have supported, like I said, the idea of Black Science Fiction Society. It could not have been done by just me. So kudos to everyone that has ever supported Black Science Fiction Society.
Yes, thank you, Black Science Fiction family.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, so for folks who want to follow you online or connect with you outside of this, where's the best place for them to get in contact with you?
Okay, I will suggest two things. You can hit me up on blacksciencefictionsociety.com, or just my name, jarvissheffield.com. That's my website.
Gotcha. Alrighty. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. We've been really looking forward to talking about this. So,
yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
I was scared. I was like jittery, because I was like, oh, I'm on here by myself. It's not a panel. I don't know if I'm gonna have that much to say.
You're not the first person.
Exactly. So many guests have said that, and that's why we kind of have this format, because we want you to feel comfortable and really dive into the stuff that you're passionate about. And then by the time you start talking, the hour's over and you don't even realize it's already been an hour.
And I think, Dana, you kind of knew that I'm a person that kind of likes to stay in the background.
Yep.
So thank you for pulling that out today.
Well, a lot of times, like Moana knows, and we often hear we have to give people their roses while they're here. And and this whole show is, we want to bring forth the people that really give the voices and contribute into the community, especially within the POC, the African, Dysposian, and Black communities, and then also AAPI communities and the indigenous communities. So we want to give those voices and people to see the faces that make a lot of things happen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much. I sincerely mean this when I say it has been an honor and a privilege to be on here today.
Yeah, thank you. You're welcome as well. But before we sign off, thank you to all of our listeners who have been engaging live, and to all of our replay viewers as well. Thank you for coming and supporting the show and getting to know about these wonderful individuals that we know will become family for us.
Yes.
Ohana is family, and that's what we're all about here.
Exactly.
Yes. And so if you guys enjoy the show, please take a moment to like the show, share it, subscribe to our YouTube channel and our Twitch. We also have our Facebook page, Moana Nui Podcast, across all three of those. And then we also have a Kickstarter that's live for just 8 more days. And you can find that link in the banner below, moananuipodcast.com. We are unlocking some amazing things as we continue to finish this campaign out. Lots of great stories and comics, some of which come out of the Black Science Fiction Society. So please take a moment to do that, even if it's just to share. Everything helps. We know it's tough times for a lot of people. So if you cannot contribute monetarily, please just hit the share button and tell a friend.
Exactly.
Yep. Any last words, Dina?
Once again, thank you everybody for joining. Definitely follow Jarvis and also the diversity and Speculative Fiction on Facebook, but also the Black Science Fiction Society, so you can keep a pulse on what's going on within the community and within. If you're a nerd for anything that is science fiction, definitely be a part of that, and definitely that way you can know what's going on with DragonCon for this year and upcoming years and everything. And then once again, definitely support any of our guests that's been on the show.
Yes.
And of course, definitely supporting our Kickstarter, because the money you bring to the Kickstarter, we put it back in the community by supporting the creatives and a lot of the indie comic community, that they get the support and backing also, but also allowing us to give that voice by having all these platforms, including if you can't watch us live, you can listen on podcast platforms like iHeart Radio podcast, Apple podcast, Amazon podcast, and Spotify podcast. So you have multiple platforms now that you can listen to this podcast because of your contribution. So we thank you.
Yes. Thank you guys so very much.
Thank you.
We hope that all of you are safe and healthy. Continue to take care of one another. And until our next show, Malama Pono, Ahui Ho.